all of that is about some shared values, and especially trust, curiosity, inspiring one another, because definitely that fuels passion and collaboration.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lucas.
And I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And we're the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change. This is our podcast,
Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out,
where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. In this season of our podcast, we're doing a deep dive into the skills that make catalysts successful. I'm thrilled today to have Katherine von Jan, who goes, by the way, by KVJ, which I'll be calling her throughout our interview. KVJ is a pioneer in applying emerging technology and rallying teams to co-create stakeholder value. She recently left her very impressive post as Chief Strategy Officer of Innovation at Salesforce, one of Fortune's top 5 most innovative companies in the world. She's the real deal, and I've already learned a lot from her. And now she and her impressive co-founders are working on something special in stealth mode. As a recognized leader in enterprise innovation, AI, ESG, and the future of work, you can bet that they'll be using their collective expertise as a force for good. So great to have you, KVJ.
Thank you. Great to be here.
All right, so let's jump right in. I'd love to hear how you relate to the concept of catalyst.
Yeah, thank you. In being a catalyst, I really think about 4 things. The first is curiosity. I think it's just innate, seeking inspiration, exploring possibilities, asking tough questions, connecting the dots, and even going deeper, really being like an anthropologist. And then I think the second thing is about conviction. Like you stumble upon an insight and you just feel compelled that that thing has to see the light of day, and you want to go talk to other people about it and see if it's really truly possible to bring that into the world. The third thing is co-creating a movement, which is really like nobody's going to do any of this alone. And I think, over time, in that networking, the jump from being compelled to do something and finding the right people and having the right kind of conversations, it builds energy and you bring the right people along. And then you realize that you need all of those skills, and everybody kind of finds their piece of the pie to tackle, and together you do it. And that brings us to the fourth thing, which is celebration. And it's really important to celebrate the win together. And I love when sort of nobody can point to any one person as the founder or as the catalyst, if you will, but everyone feels like they were part of building something and feel proud of that. And, you celebrate together.
That's an incredible distillation and 4 very concrete terms that if catalysts just follow that, you're good. I love it. It is interesting, right? When you can make something that is abstract and complex as simple as that, that's a really great skill. Speaking of skills, so what are the 1 to 2 skills that have made you successful as a catalyst, and some of the stories of how they've helped you? Of course, we always also love times, if you feel comfortable, of times when you failed because you didn't have those skills.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I would summarize the skills in relationship building. And what I mean by that is having partners and sparring partners, thinking partners, end users, people experiencing, having empathy with people and deeply understanding people, whether they're your sort of users or, the research population, or it's the collaborators, or it's, enterprise sales or what have you. I think it's that in every interaction, you build trust or you erode trust. Being really clear on that and having integrity and sort of saying, like, I want to get to know you deeply, whether you're, an employee or you're my customer or what have you. I want to really understand. And people don't often share exactly what they, what they feel. So you have to distill that and build more trust. But I think it's that over time, you start to build trust where people will share things that they might not have shared before, and you really get deeper insight. It's also that collaborators will be drawn to that. I know, as an example at Salesforce, a lot of, we're very scrappy, and it's funny to think that way because it's such a big and successful company. But, I remember going to teams like our UX team, product UX team, and just like begging people for a little of their help, like, or a product team and saying, hey, I've got this idea. Would you give me a couple hours to just think through something with you? And people were so generous, and they were leaning in. So I think all of that is about some shared values, and especially trust, curiosity, inspiring one another, because definitely that fuels passion and collaboration. And I think there's one other thing that I don't know if I would call it relationship building, but it's connected, which is what I call 360 design gymnastics. And actually I should give Scott Rogers, who's a game designer, credit for this terminology. We were working on Future of Education together, and you had to really think like a gymnast on parallel bars about using all the space around you. And when you're thinking through a design challenge, there's so much complexity. You've really got to punch holes in all different directions. So going through that process with other people where you just keep asking why, and exploring, that is a skill, not only to do that, but to get people to do it with you. So that's why it's a little bit of relationship building. In terms of an example, I'll go back 2014, 15-ish at Salesforce. We created this thing called Project 8, and Project 8 was initially brought to me by my friend Mark Leader, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Nielsen and the founder of the Demand Institute. And he had this vision for predicting demand for human needs. So how much energy will we need? How much food will we need, et cetera, for the 8 billion person population? And to give you context, in 1950, we were about 4 billion people. And then here we were looking at 8 billion by 2030. And the problem was that no one can agree. Like, energy companies would have wildly different ideas of how much energy we'll need. And so he just asked the question, would Salesforce have any technology or any interest in trying to build something for this? And so that was the first inspiration. And then I got really excited about it, but I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to explain this yet. So I went digging around the company and asking people for advice and thoughts. I initially thought, well, we'll create something around community and get researchers to come together in a community and talk about their models and what have you. It evolved into, actually, we had acquired a new analytics company, and a whole group of people there were super excited about this problem. We ended up bringing in 50 customers who were willing to give us data. We called it data for good. And they were willing to put that together. So now we had some new tools, a new product team, a different kind of relationship with Nielsen than we had ever had, and with these customers, truly doing co-innovation for good. And in that process, it became, internally, we were grappling with how to launch this new product, which became Wave Analytics. And this Project 8 was one of the use cases that we used, the stories that we told to launch it. It ended up going to Davos with Accenture and Nielsen and the UN and Salesforce all coming together to present this. And so it was just probably a 6 to 8 month journey of going from a first discussion to incorporating all of these people and building something together, and ultimately being able to tell that story to the world. And it was real. Like, we built something for this community focused on the future of food. So like that's an example where it was really relationship building in all kinds of ways, and bringing people along on that journey to create something. really matter.
That's an insane story. I mean, like anyone who's done co-innovation, like even if you're trying to do it with one other large organization to get something out the door in 6 to 8 months is just insane. So, I mean, congratulations and what an amazing focus area and impact, right? That you were able to deliver. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to unpack in the relationship building. I love how you talked about like this speed and the depth of like what you're able to get out of people that other people might not be able to or aren't trying to. I don't know how we would phrase that. And I'm guessing that like some people, like if you did that with me, KVJ, I'd be like, let's go. I'll bare my soul and I'm in all the way day one, right?
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there's a lot of people that are cynical from previous experiences, or maybe they're just really introverts, or they view trust building differently. How do you meet people where they are and give them what they need?
It's a great question. And I would probably put this also in like you asked before failure, what times you failed. And I think in my life, let alone like in my career, it's tough to be one of those catalysts and learning along the way how to do that better and better and make cool things happen. I would say, so meeting people where they're at is tricky because everyone falls somewhere on this spectrum from really kind of risk averse. They are very comfortable in the world that exists. They need the structure and the rules. They love incremental improvement, and on the other end of the spectrum, we have like disruptive thinkers, probably those who see possibilities beyond the realm of feasible. Like you really have to suspend disbelief. Mm-hmm. And there's a great tool that I learned about 20 years ago, the KAI, the Curtin Adapter Innovator Scale. And this research is based on about 50 years of research around the globe of all different kinds of populations and ages, diversity. And what Curtin found was that indeed everyone falls somewhere on this spectrum, and there's no good or bad, right or wrong. We actually all need each other.
Totally.
But we need to bridge, like someone who's he called it adapter and innovator. Someone like Edison was an adapter. He didn't really kind of break the mold. Lewis Latimer invented the light bulb. He just made it a little safer, a little better, and got into the patent office faster, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, you have like Galileo and Copernicus trying to explain to the church that, the earth revolves around the sun and get thrown in jail. And, like that's radical and disruptive. And so everyone sort of falls on the scale, and there are some components of that you can recognize in people. And what's important is for people to understand where they are on that spectrum and recognize that they have weaknesses or gaps that can be filled by other kinds of people on that spectrum. And although it may feel uncomfortable initially working with someone who is of a very different type, ultimately, if you work together, you're going to, you'll make things happen. And I think what's really crucial in that is recognizing the bridgers, like the people who are somewhere between the two people who are trying to collaborate. They can translate between the two of them. So it's really a very useful assessment to understand people. And the better you know it, the more you're able to actually, when you start talking to people, you start to realize like where they're probably at on the spectrum and adapt your messaging to that situation and find the value prop for them and get them excited in a way that brings them along on the journey.
Brilliant. So just you opened up the door. Is there a time that you didn't have that you failed?
Well, there there was one time that I went off having some pretty wild conversations externally. First of all, I always believe that to drive any change, having multiple stakeholders, especially customers and partners involved in that, motivates people. It creates some urgency and validation of the concept. So finding external experts who are passionate about the same space and maybe also on the disruptive end of the spectrum is exciting. And then you kind of get validation, you start cooking up your ideas. And in one case, I went a little too far with one expert who loved the idea, but it kind of got back around to some folks, and I got like the cease and desist letter from an executive, like, stop this. And we worked it out, actually, but it was like I kind of went too far in this one. But when we really sat down together to understand what it was and could kind of adapt the messaging and say, like, let's negotiate, how can we experiment with this, like,
That's right.
and found a way forward that turned out to be very successful, but it was like had the potential to not be very good.
Well, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I always say to Catalyst, like, get your customers on board, get the external people, because then it's not what Shannon or KVJ said. It's like what the people who pay your bills are saying, right? Your story also comes full circle, which, we call it breadcrumbing, but it's even the stakeholders who aren't going to be like on the ground delivering with you, but the rest of the network, you need to keep in your field division on your network map and bring them along, on the journey choicefully. So I love this. And I think, it speaks to the catalyst. I mean, this is sort of along the diffusions of innovation curve. It all sounds very similar. And I think the point about having a bridger like that, when I finally had that realization that I need that translator, whether it's my VP of ops or a chief of staff or whatever it is, who can help me slow down and bring those people along, then you become unstoppable. Like that is a super duo, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So you've left Salesforce, but what are your biggest challenges today as a Catalyst leader?
Well, since I left and, took some time off to figure out, like, where do I want to apply myself? Like, what's my hell yes, I want to do that. That's the, next thing I'm convicted about. So, I kind of just dove into learning and experimenting and having fun and playing with lots of different people. And I think, for some reason, my gut is pretty strong on things. I feel like right now I enter into a situation and I start learning and I kind of go like, you know what, this isn't a thing, this is a thing. And then, it's a bit of a lonely process to go from, I know what the mission is. I know where, I know what I'm committed to like, hey, I could be committed to anything next. And so, and I know that I want to have inspiring collaborators and team working on like an impossible and beautiful mission that like just has to exist in the world. It could be anything, right? Like there was this moment of like, it could be literally anything. And I've got to dive in and just start doing in order to figure out and wayfind. And so I guess for me, that I brought in a lot of collaborators and mentors, friends into that process as sounding boards. Whereas in an organization, you've got a lot of people like that around, and this is more like an independent journey. But lo and behold, found a way forward. So it's exciting.
Awesome. We can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear. I love the idea of the personal advisory board. And it's so funny, like the sentence you said before that. So we know each other through the Catalyst Leadership Trust, and we had just done this research report on the third for catalysts and different second phase, third phase of our career. We don't really retire, but even people who are the former CIO of Walmart, the way they frame up what their focus is for the next thing that they want to do is they're like, I want to work with wicked awesome people on problems that matter at speed. And it's just like, you find that intersection. We were talking about this before, right? That Venn diagram of those people and unstoppable. I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned this when we were talking before, we kicked off, and you mentioned it a little bit there. Intuition sounds like it's important for you. And I'm wondering, like, what are your signals? How do you know when that's alive?
It's funny. I feel like I've had moments where I'm really in flow, and not even moments, like phases of my life where I just, you notice things, you think things, and then all of a sudden, like it shows up, it's manifestation. And, I don't really know how that works other than, being open. Like, I think a lot of people kind of shut doors, or they don't make sense. I actually was having this conversation with a theologian, a professor in theology from Fordham, and we were talking about AI mysticism and like AI, kind of intuition. It's kind of interesting to make creative leaps. And, right now we call it hallucination in the AI world, but I think it's fascinating to see some of the leaps that it's taking. And then what's kind of interesting is putting the guardrails around like human beings will put guardrails around their own thinking that AI right now doesn't. And so in terms of getting to that point of inspiration and intuition, you kind of have to challenge your own thinking, your own frameworks, your own guardrails, or like let them go. And that can be, for some people, really scary and uncomfortable. And I actually like to practice being uncomfortable. And then you go into a space and you just feel like something almost spiritual. It's like, oh, like, wow, whether it's a person, an idea, or some kind of intuition about why something is the way it is. It's, I don't know, like, I wish I could explain exactly what the process is, but you feel it. And I think honoring and celebrating that feeling when you have it and not shut it down and go deeper, like that's the hard part, is like really.
Totally. And I'm curious, like, I also get the feels, but I'm wondering if you can describe, is it like a physical sensation for you when you're like, this is something I need to pay attention to, or this is the right path?
I think it's more of like, I don't even know. It's not, I was going to say it's kind of like a voice in my head, but that's not it. It's just like magnetism.
That's a great description.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's almost a moment of not thinking at all. And you're like, oh,
Yes.
no.
Yes. That's so well said. And the AI thing. So, you took a moment of mindfulness as we were kicking off. And I don't know if you saw the article, but there was an article about how if you ask AI to take a moment of mindfulness before it answers the questions, it gives you better answers.
Whoa, I did not know that. That is brilliant. Now I'm going to try that.
I mean, that's just nuts, right? Like, what is that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting in, like before I have a meeting, I often, or, I use some form of ChatGPT every day. I actually like Claude, but, I will prepare for a meeting or develop my questions, the things that I'm thinking about a little bit more with this, some people call it the co-pilot, but, or your sidekick, or just a creative sparring partner. What I notice when I start thinking about questions I would like to ask, I'll ask an AI, and then I see how poor the answers come back. And it's like, oh, actually, I know all this. I need to go like a step
Totally.
deeper. And so my questions get better, but then the answers get better. And I do wonder if in that, AI taking a moment of mindfulness, if it's just a signal that like, don't give me the first answer that you would probably give me the one that, the additional prompts would be asking.
It's fascinating, right? It's so like the world we're stepping into. We're talking tomorrow about Gen Z and AI and the CLT, which I'm super excited about. All right, we're going to go into rapid fire. I could talk to you forever. So one thing that you do to be ready for a big meeting.
Well, that was my thing, actually, I was going to talk about was, practicing in advance. Well, I will say, what's behind that. I learned very early on in my career to always design the conversation up. So doesn't matter who you're meeting. I will imagine that I'm going to the meeting with Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, like someone amazing that I know is super smart, so that I make sure I'm on my A game and I'm not wasting anyone's time. It's like full respect for their brilliance and intelligence. I want to come in prepared. So just that the way I get prepared now is maybe evolved and a little different than I used to, but that's
And it
things
goes
like
back to the relationship building when you show up with that honor and respect and like the space for acknowledging their wisdom. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, favorite way to spend a free day?
exploring. So that can be certainly in nature, um, diving, traveling. Iceland's amazing. I mean, I've been all over the world, 50 countries, um, skiing, falconry, you name it, like exploring new things. Yeah.
Falcon, what is it?
Falconry, like
Oh, falconry. Like you do you have a falcon yourself?
I do not. I'm taking classes. I'd like to be able to, do that.
I love
I
Catalyst.
spend
You
time
all
with the
show up.
wolves, like I really am inspired by nature. So I think there's a lot out in nature. And I grew up in New Hampshire, so, did a lot of, hiking and outdoor stuff and, kind of had a Grizzly Adams childhood. So, um, and maybe people don't know who that is, this podcast, but really fun. But then also conversation, like I was talking about that professor of theology. I think I participate in a lot of salons. It's why I love Samudra and just these communities of amazing thinkers, and I try to make time for that. And on an ideal day in life, going hiking or going into nature with a few really interesting, diverse people and experiencing that together, that's like heaven.
Yes. Yes. All right. Favorite famous catalyst. That's always hard to say. Alive or dead, and why?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this. There's so many, right? Like that's just like I could go on and on. Two that kind of stood out for me. Tarana Burke, when I met her, she was the founder of the Me Too movement. And I literally cried when I met her for the first time. And I think what's so interesting is like a lot of people don't know her name. She's still alive, and she's really worked with young women to kick off the movement. But now it's kind of ushered in this age of accountability. And for so many women were able to speak our truths. And so anyway, she's an incredible catalyst. I think of John Lewis, and I kind of get chills when I think about him, and like Good Trouble. And I think what both of them have in common is this, I call it wow to how. It's like, on one hand, all of those things about being inspiring and compelled to do good in the world and brave and, just having such conviction and willing to do anything for it. That vision is inspiring, but I think there's also like how you do it. And in every step of the way, the how is equally magical. And so, I kind of look at people like that and say, they wouldn't ever achieve that wow without being really thoughtful in the how. And I try to live by that too.
It's such great advice for catalysts, because we can be like a bull in a china shop. We can be called aggressive and, lots of things because we see that vision, but we forget that the how. And again, this just goes back full circle to your relationship building. It is all about how you're bringing people, engaging them authentically along the journey. All right, call to action for our listeners.
I think number one, be kind to yourself and others. And I think, it's funny when I was like, what is the tagline that ends with burnout? Like, no burnout, no burnout.
Move fast, break shit, don't burn out. Totally. Yes.
Like move fast, break shit, make magic, don't burn out. Because, I just think we have to take care of ourselves. And we started off with a little moment of meditation. Like, well-being is so important. Taking care of ourselves, putting on your mask on the airplane before you can do that for other people, really important. It's a crazy time. It's a weird time. There's all kinds of weird dynamics. you have to like protect your spirit and yourself, your mind, your heart in all of that. So I think that's number one. And number two is sweat a little every day. I think it's a practice to build the muscles of being able to be uncomfortable. So I'll give you an example. And this was another mentor of mine who taught me this, Rolf Smith, who was the Colonel of Innovation for the military.
Wow.
And yeah, amazing guy and an author, and the founder of this School for Innovators. And we went to the school for I went to the School for Innovation, as did others. And in that, every day we were just practicing being uncomfortable. And you can imagine that happens in the military all the time. But things like walking into the restaurant and just telling the waiter, the server, bring me anything. Like, I'm not even going to look at the menu. Like, I'm just going to wing it. And it's interesting to see what would happen. Like some people, servers will say like, I can't, like, you got to tell me what you want. And others will be like wildly innovative and they'll go back and cook up something that's not even on the menu with the chef. But, you might get something you don't like, you might, but these little things, like, that's not earth shattering, but these little moments that we can take to surprise ourselves or to do something that's kind of a little bit wacky and weird. It just makes it easier in other moments. Like when you need to send that email, that is a really tough email to send, just do it. And, it's stop overthinking it. It might be uncomfortable. You can't have 100% guarantee on anything anymore, but or ever. But do the uncomfortable thing. And if you're not sweating a little bit every day about something, then you're probably not trying hard enough.
I'm totally stealing the meal thing. Totally.
Fun. It's great.
As a foodie, I'm like, yes. And I want to go back and acknowledge what you started off with, because it's so important. And catalysts who are listening, like the thing that we say, even if you won't do it for yourself first, a burnt out catalyst creates no change at all. So if you have this vision that you want to do, at least do it in service of that. And hopefully someday you'll do it just for yourself. So thank you for that, KVJ.
You're welcome.
It's been so great having you. As I said, we could talk forever. And thanks to our listeners. We're so glad that you're here. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com. And of course, be sure to check out the book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout, we were just referencing. If you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.